Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
The immigration minister responds to comments recently made by outspoken attorney Fred Smith.
Members of Parliament react to the extension of the public disclosure's deadline. The details are straight ahead.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, the Englerston Member of Parliament slamming government on its recent deal with Oban Energies. Kyle Joaquin has the details in this report.
I am looking forward to the government not asking me to prove who he was, but for them to tell us who he is. All we know is he signed the heads of agreement with this government, Mr. Speaker.
Since signing that agreement, the government has come under heavy fire after it was revealed that Oban's non-executive chairman, Peter Krieger, pled guilty to the first-degree felony of organized fraud a few years back. Minutes said the government was aware before the agreement was signed, and during her contribution in Parliament, Hannah Martin let the government have it.
The man who signed the heads of agreement, sitting next to the Prime Minister of our country, who later on, when it became controversial, went from being whatever he was then to being described as an ambassador. That's right. That person who apparently was trying to put distance between whatever his role is or was, we don't know. If the heads of agreement were laid, we'd have greater details as to what's happening.
Concern was also raised over the agreement being signed before the completion of an environmental impact assessment. That EIA, we understand, is underway. The Prime Minister had promised to table the heads of agreement last week in Parliament, for which the Englerston MP also lashed out.
But you promised to lay it last week, you didn't lay it. You promised to lay it this week, you've not laid it, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, this individual who signed the heads of agreement of this deal with the government, who had sufficient authority to do that, has the history that I've just described, Mr. Speaker.
And that history, she said, is less than flattering.
Each day there's some new revelation of this individual who heads the ambassador. Accusations, convictions, admissions of fraud and organized fraud, misappropriation of investor funds, U.S. federal tax evasion, even accusations related to misappropriation of $8.7 million in a CLECO-related matter involving the Bahamas. In fact, it seems this ambassador, who sat in the cabinet office next to our Prime Minister, who so hates corruption, because he talks about it wherever he goes, and who signed the heads of agreement, has been barred by the U.S. Securities Commission from acting as a broker or investment advisor or otherwise associated with firms that sell securities.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, Immigration Minister Brent Simonet is firing back at outspoken activist and lawyer Fred Smith over his recent call for the Haitian government to not accept deportees born in the Bahamas of Haitian descent. Simonet says while it is clear Smith has an agenda, the government will not be baited. Jasmine Brown reports.
Simonet accused Smith of having an agenda that the government will not be a part of.
I don't want to get into a backwards and forwards with Mr. Smith. He has his agenda, and the government of the Bahamas has its agenda.
Smith, who is also president of Human Rights Bahamas, recently commended members of the MNIS cabinet for meeting with Haitian President Jovenel Moïse over the weekend to discuss illegal immigration and other matters. Smith has made it clear that he, too, would like to meet with the Haitian head of state to persuade him to refuse to allow the Bahamas government to what he called illegally expel persons born in the Bahamas of Haitian descent. However, Simonet insisted the government will operate according to the laws of the Bahamas.
A country has a sovereign right to enforce its rules and policies, and that is supreme. So in that relationship, he can do whatever's on his agenda. It's unreal to think that a person who enters this country illegally, the government of the Bahamas cannot repatriate them or deport them or whatever word you want to. I mean, Mr. Smith cannot be thinking that. And we can't lose the question of persons born in the Bahamas with persons who came here illegally.
Smith has made headlines in recent months after representing migrants and people of Haitian descent who a Supreme Court judge ruled were unlawfully detained by immigration officers. As for what he believes Smith's agenda is, Simonet says whatever he is trying to achieve, it doesn't appear the Bahamian people are buying into it.
Whatever his agenda is fine. I mean, if it's making money or whatever, or the concerns of the persons, that's his agenda. I'm not going to comment on that. But I think I will repeat again, from what I'm seeing on the ground, many Bahamians are not behind what he's doing.
The immigration minister says the government is forging ahead with its legislative agenda to change existing immigration laws. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Several members of parliament say they were ready to disclose their finances despite an extension to the end of this month. However, some political newcomers questioned whether the process is too intrusive. Jared Higgs has that story.
Some of the first-time members expressed concern with the fact that they had to disclose assets from 2016 when they would not have been members of parliament.
I think the whole question of public disclosure needs to be revisited. I mean, as a new member of parliament, I'm now required to disclose the information as at the end of 2016, the same information I disclosed prior to the elections.
Cooper says it must be determined whether the process is intrusive. Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, Central and South Abaco MP James Albury, and North Eleuthera MP Howard Mackey all say that they were prepared for the March 1st deadline, despite an extension to March 31st by Public Disclosure Commission Chairman Miles LaRota. Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, who previously served in the Senate and didn't disclose during his time there, says he has already filed his disclosure this time around. To Cooper's question over whether it's an intrusive process, McAlpine said,
I think it might be, but nevertheless, I was running and I was elected. And so unless they are prepared to amend the laws, I think we should abide by the law.
Central and South Abaco MP, another first-time member of parliament, says disclosing is simply a part of public life.
You know, it's part of the sacrifice of elected life. We all had to disclose before we ran, even though we were not active members of the elected or senior government officials. I was not, but we still had to disclose because we intended to run, and that comes with the territory.
Albury's fellow first-timer, North Eleuthera member of Parliament Howard Mackey says because of problems in the past, there seems to be a need to know everything about a politician's finances, a situation he describes as serious.
It's really something when you have the file and then you've got to ask your children what do they have or if they have anything, and you've got to list all your properties and all your assets. I have been fortunate in a way that I've been blessed over the years to, coming from a single family home. I worked hard, and with the help of my wife and my family, we've amounted a couple of dollars, but it's like you're living under a microscope.
The Free National Movement pledged to introduce tougher public disclosure legislation for parliamentarians as part of its anti-corruption agenda. The most recently gazetted information is from December 2011, and it contains information on disclosures up to 2008. Reporting for our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
And there's corruption in every sector of our society, according to North Abaco Member of Parliament Darren Henfield. He said as much during debate on a compendium of credit reporting bills in the House of Assembly this morning.
On the 10th of May, 2017, we got a clear mandate that we must deal with the impact of corruption. It's intolerable in this country and elsewhere in the world, and by so doing, we demonstrate our resolve to, as much as humanly possible, remove this yoke of corruption from the necks of the hard-working Bahamians who all too often are deprived of the benefits of their labor because of unscrupulous, self-serving kleptocrats whose only purpose in public life is to enrich themselves.
Henfield supported the bill, saying they will help with keeping a watchful eye on those who enter public life with the wrong intentions. He referenced the fact that many enter frontline politics broke but leave with a lot more money than they came with.
But it also seeks to build on our government's intentional agenda to introduce legislation intended to ensure greater public accountability by providing for the confiscation of unexplained wealth and for the forfeiture of ill-gotten gains.
Still to come on our news, one MP's call for harsher road traffic penalties. Plus, the country's brightest business minds gather for a finance summit. That and more when our news returns.